system, it is the rear shock absorber mounting sports utility vehicle. Now, such kind of suspension system is used in sports utility vehicle. Here at this particular location, so at this particular location, you can fit the lift spring as well. Okay, so at this location, and this is the shock absorber. So shock absorber is a telescopic type, that means cylinder in cylinder. So we will see what are the features of this. So two front shock absorbers are connected from the front suspension to chassis. Two rear shock absorber are attached between the rear suspension and the chassis. So this is shown for the rear shock absorber. Shock absorbers have three main purposes. They control spring action. So whatever the suspension spring which will be here, it will consider, or it will control the spring action. Then they help prevent body sway and lean while cornering. That means whenever you take the turn, then the swaying couple is generated. Swaying couple is generated because of the friction and because of the centrifugal force. They act in the opposite direction. So swaying couple will try to topple the vehicle. So that is being controlled by this. They reduce the tendency of tire tread to lift off the road, which improves the tire life, traction, and directional stability. As I have, as we discussed previously, that if you ride on the vehicle without the shock absorber, then you carry the vibrations after the vehicle hit the bump. So because shock absorbers control spring action, spring oscillation, and chassis oscillation, they contribute to vehicle safety. So this is one of the safety systems which you can say that this is the part of the safety system and the passenger comfort. So this is regarding the shock absorber. Then we'll move ahead. There is some more theory. Now shock absorber design. So what is exactly shock absorber design? So shock absorbers filled with hydraulic oil and nitrogen gas. So nitrogen being inert, the shock absorbers, they are filled with. Now you please see that this is the upper mounting, this is the lower mounting, this is the piston. So piston is having some small holes in it so that the oil from one compartment can move to the other compartment. So that is the case. Then coming here, the lower half of shock absorber is twin tube steel unit filled with hydraulic oil and nitrogen gas. In some shock absorber, nitrogen gas is omitted. That means it may so happen that the nitrogen gas may leak, and that is why in some shock absorber you don't feel the nitrogen gas. I'll show you the working of this particular shock absorber, so don't worry. A relief valve is located in the bottom of the unit, and the circular lower mounting is attached to the lower tube. So this is tube in tube kind of telescopic kind of shock absorber. This mounting contains a rubber isolation bushing or grommet. Then a piston and rod assembly is connected to the upper half of the shock absorber. So this is basically the cut section, the reservoir tube, then oil chamber. This is the this complete thing is a piston, and there is a relief valve at the bottom. So this is a dual shield rod guide, and the you can say that this shock absorber, the inner cylinder and the outer cylinder, they can have the movement like this. That means it is just like a spring action. Okay, only thing, this is the spring action with the dissipation of the energy due to shocks. Coming here, the upper portion of the shock absorber has a dust shield which that surrounds the lower twin tube. The piston is precision fit in the inner cylinder of the lower unit. A piston rod guides and the seal are located in the bottom portion. Seals are located in the top and the lower unit. Okay, so this is the construction of the shock absorber. Please understand that shock absorber is nothing but a tube in tube kind of telescopic structure. On one side there will be oil, and on the other side there will be small amount of oil. When the depending upon the movement of the axle, whether you compress the shock absorber or whether you elongate it, the oil from one unit will move to other unit. So that is basically a simple principle of the shock absorber. A circular upper mounting with the rubber bushing is attached to the top of the shock absorber. So this is okay. Now this will give you the complete picture. When the vehicle hits the bump in the road, the suspension moves upward. Okay, this is called a compression. A rebound is when the coil or the torsion bar or leaf return to its original position. So compression, this is the compression and this is the rebound. So what it says about it, as the wheels rolls over the bump, this same thing, as the spring compresses, it stores the energy. So here, this in this condition, it stores the energy in the spring, half delta into something. So that is basically the energy which is stored in the spring. The spring then releases this stored energy, causing the body of the vehicle to raise. That is rebound. So this is the idea. तो कंप्रेशन में वो एनर्जी स्टोर कर लेता है स्प्रिंग और धीरे धीरे वो जो एनर्जी है ये ऑयल के कारण सी देयर इज अरेंजमेंट लाइक दिस इज लेट अस से पिस्टन. This is the piston. It is having certain holes over here in the piston. So this is fitted in the cylinder. Suppose you got some kind of oil over here. Let us say that some oil is here. So this is the oil. When this piston will move in the forward direction, the oil will move through this particular hole on the opposite direction because of the compression, and because of that, because of the viscous effect, the energy of the shock is absorbed. So this is the principle which is used in the shock absorber. Then shock absorber operation. So this is compression and rebound. See, just now I have explained that this is the, please note that this is the so this is basically the path of the oil. As you compress, the oil will move upwards from this, and as you rebound, the oil will move from top portion to the bottom portion. So this is the simple principle of operation of the shock absorber. The shock absorbers are installed on the suspension system to control spring action. When the wheel strikes a bump or jumps, this is the same thing. This action forces the piston downward in the lower tube. Since oil cannot leak past the piston, the oil in the lower unit is forced through the piston valves to the upper oil chamber. So these are the piston valves basically, which will allow the flow of the oil through it in both the direction. These valves provide precise oil flow control and control the upward action of the wheel and suspension, which is referred to as shock absorber compression stroke. When the spring expands downwards in the rebound travel, the shock absorber unit is also forced downwards. When this occurs, the piston moves upward in the lower tube unit, and the hydraulic oil is forced the piston valves from the upper oil chamber to lower oil chamber. That means this motion will continuously go on, compression and rebound, and oil keeps on shuttling from one part of the piston to other part of the piston, thereby absorbing the energy. That energy, whatever is absorbed, is because of the viscous effect, it gets converted into heat. So if you are moving on the rough road, then if there is continuous motion of the wheel axle, then you may get that the temperature of the shock absorber may increase. So the hydraulic oil should be selected in such a way that there should not be any change in the viscosity as far as the temperature is increased. Therefore, you can go for the can say multi grade oil. Do you know anything about the oils which you use? Monograde and multigrade? Single grade oil and multi-grade oil, sir, do you know that? Sir, please reply. It's not a one-way traffic, sir. So you do not know about the oils. I will give you the idea just in brief regarding the oil. So please be patient. Please listen to this. I'll shift to the screen where I'll give you some idea regarding the oil. So please try to understand. See, oils used in vehicle. So you know that the oils where the oil is used in the vehicle. The first is you use engine oil. Then power steering pump you require, that is the oil pump. Then the third one is brake oil. This is also called as the steering oil. Then fourth one is your gearbox oil. Fifth one, oil used in shock absorber. Please note that whenever there is a leakage of oil, the dust will get accumulated at that particular portion, and it will be some oil. If you touch the dust, that will be some oily in nature. Now you got to have the oil. There are two grades of oil: monograde oil and multigrade oil. Now these oils, they are governed by the SAE standard. So SAE standards, they are governed. For example, if you take the example of monograde oil example, so I will write down SAE 20 oil, SAE 30 oil, SAE let us say 40 oil. Now for the multigrade oil example, SAE 20W40, SAE 30W40, so etc. So what is the difference between this? First of all, what is the number SAE 20 and SAE 40 indicate? Is it that SAE 20 oil is more viscous than SAE 30 oil or SAE 40 oil? I want your response, your participation in this. What is your perception? Have you gone for the oil change of your two-wheeler or four-wheeler? So what does that number signify? SAE 20, SAE 40, SAE 30? सर कुछ आइडिया है क्या SAE 20, 30, 40 का? What is the idea for this? Means what these numbers they indicate? Sir, such kind of questions will be asked in your campus interview, sir. If you opt for the campus interview of any automobile industry, or for that matter, any industry which is working in the area of machine tool design and automobile industry or some automotive ancillary, then you will be asked such kind of simple questions, the answer for which is not given in in most of the books. So sir, please let me know what is your perception as far as SAE 20, 30, 40 is concerned. Do you have any idea or you don't have any idea? How many of you are currently taking the breakfast and looking and just keeping your attendance digitally? For same temperature, viscosity increases as we increase the SI number. Okay, viscosity. Viscosity of oil is what? What do you mean by Pradyuman? Viscosity of oil. You have marked the question mark. See, please note that these SAE 20, sorry, SAE 20, SAE 30, they indicate SAE standard number. Okay, they do not have anything related to viscosity, so they only indicate that it is the SAE standard number, and the oil which meets the viscosity specifications for particular standard at given conditions in standard, then that oil is said to be of SAE number grade. Example, let us say if you take that SAE 30, that means oil meets the viscosity specs given in SAE 30 standard. Okay, so this is basically the number which it signifies. SAE 20, SAE 20 का मतलब ये है कि you have got the oil which will satisfy all the viscosity specifications which are given in SAE standard 20 at the given temperature. So this is basically the thing related to mono grade oil. Now you understand that just this is the example for understanding. This is not actual thing. Let us say that you have got the graph. Let us say that this is the viscosity and this is the temperature. Okay. मान लो कि आपका just I am giving you this is the example just for the sake of understanding. Let us say that you got the viscosity graph like this. Okay, for let us say that this is a graph for SAE some number, SAE number 1 or SAE E number का ये graph है. Now let us say the other graph is SAE B number का graph है. Okay, then let us say that this is your 0 degrees centigrade. The temperature is increasing on this side. Now you may have the oil, which will satisfy the winter standard viscosity of SAE and high temperature viscosity SAE. So, sorry, this is the oil meet specs of SAE B at low temperature and meets the viscosity specs of SAE A at high temperature. So this is known as multi-grade oil. Now is it like a serial number? Saurabh, it is not like a serial number. It is basically the number of the standard. You say SAE 10, SAE 20, SAE 40, SAE 50, 60, 70. These are the names which are given to the standards in which all detailed viscosity specifications are given. So I do not know the logic why those numbers are given, but I definitely say that these are not the serial number. There may be some numbers which might have been skipped by the SAE. We do not know. Okay, basically whatever background I know as far as your automotive industry is concerned, that thing I am discussing regarding how those numbers are arrived at. I am sorry to say I do not have the background for that. Okay. Now, the oil which I have shown you by the red color line, which will meet this winter specifications. Winter specification means a temperature less than 0 degrees centigrade. It has got the viscosity of the oil which conforms to SAB, and at high temperature it has got the viscosity equal to the oil which is conforming to SAE. So what it is, what that oil will be? SAE AWB. That means you may have the oil which may confirm at, so A can be 20, B can be 30, and similar thing like this. Example, SAE 20, this may be 20, W 40 means B. Okay, so the oil is meeting the specification of SAE 20 in the at the high temperature, whereas it meets the specification of SAE 40 at low temperature. So that is why you got to have the SAE 20 W40, and this is the reason why the automotive industry, they specify only multi-grade oil for all other your. So this gives you the important conclusion that automobile manufacturers specify only a single multi-grade oil for a range of temperature. So please note that this is very, very important. It will not tell you that, for example, if you buy the vehicle, Maruti vehicle, then अगर आपने अल्टो गाड़ी खरीदी, so अल्टो गाड़ी if you drive in the cold region like Kashmir, then you have to fill the same multi-grade oil, and if you drive the same vehicle in Rajasthan or in Maharashtra during summer, the oil which is recommended for the engine is same. There is no different, there are no two different oils which are specified by the automotive manufacturer. So please understand this. This is very, very important aspect कि ऐसा नहीं है कि भाई टेम्परेचर ड्रॉप हुआ तो आप एक ग्रेड का ऑयल यूज करो, और अगर आप हॉट रीजन में गाड़ी चला रहे हो तो यूज दी अदर काइंड ऑफ ऑयल. So these are not specified because of the availability of the multi grade oil. One more thing about the oil, it is very interesting. You might have heard that overhead valve technology, which is used for operating of the intake and exhaust valves of the engine. That technology was developed much before, but it has been recently used in last 15 years because the oil technology was not developed. Because if you have to start the engine, then you need to have the lubrication right from the first crank. So in that case, you should have the provision to retain the oil at every part, because you can't wait that you start the engine and then the oil pump will force the oil, or it will pump the oil and it will reach to that particular component. by that time there will be a metal to metal contact, and the complete you can say erosion of the metal will take place if it is a metal to metal contact. So then oil companies have come up with the oil which can stick to the component at that particular location without affecting the gravity effect, because otherwise all the oil will go back to the gravity if you switch off the engine. That will be there, but there will be some portion of the oil which will be getting stick to the walls there, and that is how you can use the overhead wall technology. So please understand that OHC, where you read on some of the vehicle, it is basically overhead wall, and that technology was developed much earlier, but its implementation took time because the reason I told you. Okay, so with now please understand that it is not only the automotive technology which is governing the vehicle modification, rather it is the technology of the oil is also equally important. Otherwise your whatever you developed, whatever design you created, that may not get implemented because of these problems. Okay, so please understand that this is the classic example. So we were discussing the shock absorber, and related to the oil, we have seen that what is the idea regarding the oil which you use in the shock absorber. So is there any issue, any doubt to you regarding the oil grades and other things? सर समझ में आया क्या कि ऑटोमोबाइल मैन्युफैक्चरर सिर्फ आपको एक ही ग्रेड का ऑयल देता है, वो ये नहीं बोलता है कि ये क्वेश्चन आपको एग्जामिनेशन में पूछते हैं, ये आपको क्वेश्चन इंडस्ट्री के इसमें पूछते हैं कैंपस इंटरव्यू में कि हाउ व्हाट इज व्हाई डोंट यू रिक्वायर, व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय SAE 20, SAE 40 एंड ऑल दोस थिंग्स. सो प्लीज बी केयरफुल रिगार्डिंग दिस. Since the wall restricts oil flow and this is okay. Now the strut assembly, so this is the additional thing which I wanted you people to understand. Struts are similar to shock absorber. So this strut, McPherson strut assembly we have seen in the independent suspension system. So he's talking about that strut are usually positioned between the knuckle and the chassis to provide knuckle support. Internal strut design is very similar to shock absorber design. Strut performs the same function as the shock absorber. Sir, this please note that. That means the strut assembly itself is acting as the shock absorber. तो ये जो spring है sir, इसके vibrations, this is called as the fluttering effect of the spring. This is very pronounced in case of walls as well. So that is why you will find that the wall seats, they are hardened because the walls, they are opened by the rocker. Once it is opened and then it is released, then the spring is getting compressed. So it should not happen that there should be the fluttering of the spring. Fluttering means after the compression and expansion, it should not further oscillate. So that is why, to avoid that, because if it oscillates, then in that case what is going to happen, the wall seat will break because of the constant fatigue load. It is just like the hammering. Okay, so some struts have replaceable cartridge. So this is mentioned. Now it is showing you the strut assembly. The strut adjustment knob varies the strut orifice opening. This knob has 8 possible settings. The factory setting is number 3, which provides average suspension control. Number 1 setting provides reduced spring control and the offset ride, whereas number 8 adjustment gives increased spring control and hardest ride. Thus, the knob is usually accessible without raising the vehicle. Raising means आपको व्हीकल उठाने की जरूरत नहीं है, वो एक्सेसिबल होता है. But let me frankly admit that I have not seen such kind of setting on shock absorber. Might be I might not have come across such kind of vehicle. Okay, but this is another design which is given. Now note on the shock absorber and strut assembly. Of all the suspension components, shock absorber and strut contribute the most to ride quality. As the vehicle is driven over road irregularities, the shock absorbers or struts are continually operating to control the spring action and provide acceptable ride quality. Shock absorbers and struts usually wear out first in suspension system. See this, I have marked it in red because it is said that the chain is as strong as its weakest link. Therefore, in the suspension system, before failure of the component of the suspension system, the shock absorber will wear out first. So, सर अगर आप कहीं शॉक एब्जॉर्बिंग के लिए या शॉक एब्जॉर्बर में अगर लीकेज देखें एंड टू व्हीलर आप अगर सर्विसिंग के समय लेके गए, then what the first thing what he will see, he will just press the rear seat and or the rear stand, and then he will say कि सर शॉक एब्जॉर्बर से आवाज आता है, मेटल टू मेटल कांटेक्ट का आवाज आता है. He will not say metal to metal contact, he will only say that कि सर शॉक एब्जॉर्बर का पूरा ऑयल निकल गया है, लीकेज है, आपको शॉक एब्जॉर्बर चेंज करना पड़ता है. So don't directly believe on whatever he is saying. Please try to see that if there is some dust accumulated there. Otherwise आप यूज कर सकते हो. डस्ट भी अगर एक्यूमुलेट होता है तो जस्ट इन फर्स्ट गो डोंट चेंज द शॉक एब्जॉर्बर, use it for some more time, and if you have the same kind of observation, then go for the replacement of the shock absorber. As such, repair of the shock absorber is mostly not done. It is basically the replacement of the shock absorber. If the shock absorbers are not functioning properly, the ride quality gets adversely affected, and it may also affect the tire life of the vehicle. So this is regarding the shock absorber. So we have come to an end of the topic on the suspension system. So anybody is having any question, please do ask. सर किसी को कुछ सर क्वेश्चन है तो सर कृपा करके पूछिए, नहीं तो सर फिर हम लोग शॉक अब्जॉर्बर भी बंद करते हैं. सॉरी, सस्पेंशन सिस्टम का टॉपिक ऑलमोस्ट नाउ वी हैव डिस्कस everything. There is one type of a problem which I have explained you, so don't worry. तो स्प्रिंग वाला था वो मैंने आपको बता दिया है. So this is the regarding the shock absorber. सर किसी को कुछ डाउट है क्या? Do you have anybody is having any doubt? Please do ask. If you do not have any doubt, then we will go to the next topic, that is nothing but the propeller shaft. सर पूछिए, आई एम वेटिंग फॉर योर रिस्पॉन्स. जिनको डाउट है, नहीं है, क्या है? ओके सर, चलो तो आगे बढ़े सर. चलो ठीक है, तो हम लोग सर आई एम शिफ्टिंग टू दी न्यू स्क्रीन वेयर नाउ वी आर गोइंग टू डिस्कस दी प्रोपेलर शाफ्ट. सो what do you mean by propeller shaft? What is propeller shaft? Have you seen that? सर बताइए कि प्रोपेलर शाफ्ट सर आपने देखा है क्या? चलो, in truck it is visible, correct. In some of the फोर व्हीलर आप देख सकते हो, महिंद्रा के व्हीकल में या टाटा के व्हीकल में, टाटा सुमो में भी देख सकते हो, लेकिन थोड़ा सा झुकना पड़ेगा. ट्रक में तो आपको डायरेक्टली दिखता है. सो basically it transmits the rotary motion of gearbox output shaft to the differential. So what it does, that transmits rotary motion of gearbox output shaft to differential. Please note that it transmits motion at an angle. Okay, so this is the important thing. It transmits the motion at an angle which is varying frequently, which is varying frequently. The third thing what it is supposed to do is it accommodates changes in length. It accommodates changes in length between between and rear axle due to up and down, due to up and down movement of rear axle. So these are three important points the propeller shaft has to meet. We are going to see the another important point as far as the propeller shaft is concerned. So please, I'll draw this sketch that let us say that this is the this is going to be the gearbox output. Now this length of the propeller shaft, this is just to give you an example, is connected to the differential. Okay, and here you may have the, now this particular length of the propeller shaft. So this is the length of the propeller shaft. It has increased. अगर ऊपर गया तो लेंथ कम होती है. So एक मिनट. The length of the drive line between the gearbox and differential vary due to this flexible. This is one way. The other thing is now you can have the propeller shaft connected like this to the differential. See, this is the short length, this is the long length. That means ये जब व्हीकल ऊपर चलेगा तो इसकी लेंथ कम होगी और व्हीकल अपने पहले की जगह आएगा तो इसकी लेंथ बढ़ेगी. So this is the maximum length of the propeller shaft. So the change in length of propeller shaft is possible due to sliding joint. So this is the important thing, or this is also called as the slip joint. I will draw the figure of the propeller shaft to make this thing very clear. Now the figure of the propeller shaft is something like this. This is the universal joint. ये आपको यहाँ गियर बॉक्स का इनपुट, ये स्ट्रेट लाइन ड्रॉ करता हूँ सर, सेंटर लाइन. Now you may have slip joint here, then this is connected to the propeller shaft. Propeller shaft connect किया, then यहाँ से the other end of the propeller shaft is connected to the universal joint and is connected to differential. So ये हो गया आपका differential को कनेक्ट किया. और सर यहाँ जो है आपने प्रोपेलर शाफ्ट को कनेक्ट किया, तो ये जो है सर, ये है आपका slip joint. So this is a propeller shaft tube. This is propeller shaft tube. ये है आपका slip joint और इसको बोलेंगे sliding joint. ये आपका universal joint. ये भी universal joint input. And this is gearbox output shaft. So this is the figure of the propeller shaft which is used in most of the vehicle. You got to have the universal joints. A universal joint you studied in the theory of machines or machine design. Two universal joints, they are connected. One is at the differential end and one is at the gearbox end. As Saurabh said that in truck it is visible, so sir, kabhi he is right. So when you get the time or whenever you find that the truck is parked, just watch it carefully. You will able to see the propeller shaft. Okay, so the total length of the propeller shaft is this particular length from here to here. The end to end, this is the length of the propeller shaft L. Now propeller shaft over 1.5 meter length between universal joint cause unbalanced weight. So please understand that propeller shaft over 1.5 meter length between universal joint cause unbalance problem. This unbalance problem is due to the sagging of the propeller shaft in the in-between area between the two joints. So propeller shaft being usually rolled out from a flat sheet straightened within 0.25 mm runout. Okay, so ये जो है ये फ्लैट शीट को रोल करके प्रोपेलर शाफ्ट बनाते हैं जिसका स्ट्रेटनेस है 0.25 millimeter maximum is allowed in the straightness dimension. Now one important aspect of the propeller shaft is when you fit the propeller shaft, you have to find out what is the natural frequency of the propeller shaft. If the natural frequency of the propeller shaft matches with the gearbox output shaft frequency, that means if this ये फ्रीक्वेंसी से अगर मैच कर गया natural frequency, so then in that case you know that the resonance will happen and the propeller shaft will break. Do you agree to this or not, sir? अगर प्रोपेलर शाफ्ट की नेचुरल फ्रीक्वेंसी इससे मैच हो गई तो प्रोपेलर शाफ्ट आपका आउट हो जाएगा. So is this clear? Shall I go to the next page? सर बताइए नेक्स्ट पेज चले क्या? बिकॉज प्रोपेलर शाफ्ट का अपने को एक इक्वेशन लिखना है फ्रीक्वेंसी के लिए. Shall I go to next page? ओके तो सर अभी नेक्स्ट चलते हैं, इसका इक्वेशन लिखते हैं. आई शिफ्ट टू द न्यू स्क्रीन. इज पेज नंबर 3. ये भी आपको लिख देता हूं. प्रोपेलर shaft tubing usually rolled from flat sheet, straighten within 0.25 millimeter turnout. Okay, so now critical speed of propeller shaft. So how to find out critical speed of propeller shaft? This is given as NC is equal to 60 divided by 2 pi square by L root of E I divided by rho into A, where I is moment of inertia of shaft section. This is given as pi by 64 in bracket d outer diameter raised to power 4, d inner diameter raised to power 4. A is cross sectional area. This is equals to pi by 4 d0 square minus di square. So Young's modulus usually, this is Young's modulus. This is usually taken as 1.96 into 10 raised to power 11 Newton per meter square. Density of the steel, I'm just giving you a representative value, 7860 kg per meter cube. Now torque to be transmitted by propeller shaft. So torque to be transmitted by propeller shaft can be given as TT is equals to TE multiplied by G, where TE is your engine torque, and G is gear ratio. Since from engine to propeller shaft there is a reduction, that is why it is the gear ratio which is taken into consideration. Then TD is basically design torque. This can be equal to torque to be transmitted into loading factors which are given into the data book. Okay, so then from here you can find out TD divided by IP, polar moment of inertia, is equals to Fs, maximum allowable shear stress, by Y. Y is the distance of outermost fiber from the neutral axis. So this you can also, if you know, you can also find out TD using this equation, Fs IP by Y. If you want to find out this design torque, if Fs is the allowable shear stress limit for the shaft material, this is known. If Fs is allowable shear stress limit for the shaft material, and Y is distance of outermost fabric, distance of outermost fiber from neutral axis. Please understand that this expression I have written into load factor. If you want to get the cross section of the this particular shaft, then in that case you need to put the value of design torque, that how much torque you wanted to transfer and what is the allowable material. Then from here you can get IP by Y. From there you can get the design. That is first thing. If you are doing it other way around, that means if TD is given, IP is known, Y is known, then you can find out Fs. So there are two ways. That is why I have written that torque to be transmitted by the propeller shaft is equal to design torque is equals to TT into loading factor, because for designing of the shaft some of the loading factors are taken into account. So this is basically the design criteria for the propeller shaft. In the next class we are going to solve one problem on the propeller shaft, and then we will start with the vehicle refrigeration and air conditioning system. So if you have any doubt, please do ask.